Yeah. Talking about the big serpent that the Roman general, I forgot his name, but it was a Roman general during the First Punic War that met a giant snake. You heard it right, a giant serpent was encountered by the Roman army in modern day Tunisia. And it's called the Bagradas Serpent. After it was killed, its skull was transported to Rome, and its skin likewise. So it was kept there for decades, meaning it is disproven that this is a myth, because any Roman historian or credible source would have deemed it as a myth if it wasn't the case, because the claim is that it was kept there for several decades, and thus if nobody disputes that, it's highly unlikely that it was a myth. So it was this giant snake, but you can go down to my previous video I did on the channel where I talk about it a little bit more, and I want to do another video like source analysis, which is a different topic. It is general historic analysis about sources, and then we take this serpent as an example of how you actually apply the several principles and methods of determining whether something really happened or not, or how likely it was to happen, and how accurate an account is, etc. Right? But yeah, that's another topic. So the serpent, in this video right here, I want to talk about the great habitat of that serpent, right? In my video, I said that this serpent had to be bigger than the titanoboa. Now I did look up some pictures of titanoboa comparisons with humans, how big they were, and I did come to the conclusion that they were pretty big and they could inflict severe damage even on a small legion, right? But well, I still think the snake was a little bit, at least a little bit bigger than a titanoboa. I still believe it. Maybe not as gigantic as I said it to be, because that probably would have wiped the legion out, to be honest with you. But the habitat, the area or the place where that snake lived is, if you look at it, ideal for a huge serpent to exist, because it's a river up from the mountains of Algeria, the Rif region, right, of Algeria. The river starts and it goes through Tunisia, ending in a lagoon. And why? Let's analyze why the area is so good for the life of a huge serpent. Well, North Africa back in the days, there were a lot of elephants roaming around. There were a lot of big bears, right? Different kind of animals that don't exist anymore, but especially the elephants, which is really interesting because in the Tamil language, and one of the, maybe the main language in Sri Lanka, the name for an anaconda, which is believed is the origin for the word anaconda, is the elephant killer, right? The elephant killing animal or elephant killing serpent. And if the snake, if like a titanoboa would probably be able to kill a baby elephant, right? Maybe even a larger elephant. Titanoboa was huge and powerful, just as not only the length but the girth of it, huge. So if the snake was even slightly bigger than that, there's a high likelihood that it fed on elephants, and there were plenty of elephants in North Africa. So from the food stock, that's ideal for a huge serpent to exist. Now, the river as well, we know that large anacondas and large pythons and boas exist in rivers, right? They swim in rivers. They love rivers because there's also big fish there. There's animals that have to cross rivers because a river is like a crossroad, right? It's like getting you from the one side to the other side. And a lot of animals have to or want to cross that river. And since the river is so huge, this North African river is so long, it's very long. It's going almost from the middle of Algeria to Tunisia. And that's, I don't know how many kilometers or miles, but it's extremely long, like thousands of miles, right? So, or at least 1,000. So that means that those animals cannot bypass it, right? If they want to go into another area, they will have to cross the river. And that's where the anaconda or the huge snake, the huge serpent, would have fed on them. Yeah, so that's a very good factor for it, right? The geography, it being a river, and also the reality that a lot of large animals live there, and it was much more populated by animals back then and wild animals. And it was also not that populated by humans, which also is a plus for that huge serpent to exist, because nobody's gonna go out there and hunt it or fight it off, because it's basically threatening the villages or the cities, right? So yeah, so those are three main factors right now. And also a very good factor for it to live ideally is the lagoon, because the lagoon is like the river, a very good place for a serpent to exist in. A lot of animals that came from the river or lived from the river, they end up at a lagoon. A lot of fish there. Maybe some animals take baths in there. We know that North Africa can get pretty dry and pretty hot, even 2,000 years ago, right? And so large animals probably did get some fresh water in the lagoon, right? Also some humans were fishing there and stuff like that, most likely. So you had most likely a lot of elephants being there. Maybe, I don't know if there were hippos, and that's something to research about, but large animals there in this lagoon, most likely they benefited from the fresh water there, right? And so even if it wasn't fresh water, even if the seawater was going in there, right? I'm not too sure if it's fresh water from the river or it is the salty water from the Mediterranean, because that's something special. It's a river going into the lagoon and then being connected to the Mediterranean Sea, which is salt water, of course. But the animals would have still took their bath in there if it was extremely hot, which Tunisia is one of the hottest countries on earth. In summer, it is probably the hottest country on earth, or the second hottest. It's between Iran and Tunisia in summer, for sure. So yeah, a lot of animals would have bathed there, and that's a perfect opportunity for a huge serpent to attack those